In the late 1800s and early 1900s, many African Americans moved to Oklahoma to get away from the racism and prejudice of the southern United States. For a chance to start over in a more friendly place, African Americans came by wagon, horse, train, and on foot to settle in the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in an area called the Greenwood District. By 1921, Greenwood had become a successful district for African Americans. No whites lived there or did business in the area. Around 10,000 blacks had homes in Greenwood. The businesses owned and ran by African Americans were very successful. Wealthy African American businessmen, doctors, lawyers, realtors, and other professionals called the Greenwood District home. Banks, churches, stores, newspaper publishers, hotels, theaters, a post office, libraries, schools, and airports thrived in the area. Greenwood was the wealthiest black community in the United States. It earned the title Black Wall Street, a name given to mimic the United States financial district in New York City named Wall Street. Late in the month of May 1921, an African American by the name of Dick Rowland was accused of attacking a white female elevator operator. He was later cleared of the crime, but not before the newspaper, the Tulsa Tribune, published a story about the accused attack. On May 31st, an angry mob of white men armed with guns decided to kill Dick Rowland when he was released from jail. A group of African American men heard of this plan and also went to the jail to protect Dick. An argument started between the two groups and a gun went off. This started a violent riot. Whites flooded into Greenwood with the intent of destroying it and killing African American men, women, and children. On June 1st, military troops were brought to Greenwood to stop the violence, but by then, 1,000 African American businesses and homes were wiped out. The American Red Cross estimated that over 300 people were killed and 35 city blocks were destroyed by fire. The Tulsa Race Riot was the worst riot over the issue of blacks and whites in the history of the United States. After the riot, Greenwood was rebuilt 5 years later and became a famous place for jazz and blues music in the late 1920s. For many years, the details of the Tulsa Race Riot were kept out of the history books, but in the early 2000s, a study revealed the facts. In honor of those affected by the violence, scholarships have been given to the descendants of the African Americans who survived the riot, and memorials have been built to honor those who were killed.
All right. I almost became a politician, but that all changed when I read the story of Mabel Little. You see, Mabel moved from Boley, Oklahoma to Tulsa, Oklahoma when she was just 17 years old. She only had $1 to her name, and even her own mother thought she would end up as a prostitute. But when she moved to Tulsa, she moved to the Greenwood area. And that's where a lot of the black people who migrated to Oklahoma moved. And she was just so excited to move there, had so much energy, really wanted to make things happen. But when she got there, she was a little underwhelmed. They only had one street. There was nothing but dirt roads. But Mabel found her way. She worked as a maid, earning $20 a month. She got married, and she and her husband saved up enough money to build a house where they would run several small businesses. And then she earned enough to even start her own salon called Little Rose Beauty Salon. And she started it in the heart of the town on that one paved road. So Mabel was just one of the many stories and success stories that come from that small Greenwood area. And as a matter of fact, there were so many popular businesses at that time from black people that it even earned itself a nickname, the Black Wall Street. So the Black Wall Street and Mabel's story, it inspired me, and it convinced me that politics isn't the only thing that can make change in the community. It's economic empowerment. Unfortunately, Black Wall Street was destroyed by one of the worst race riots in American history, and all was lost. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. And in Newark, New Jersey, we're no stranger to riots. In 1967, Newark had a riot that was sparked by racial injustice and police brutality. Sounds pretty familiar. But when that happened, so many people left the city, and community landmarks like the Paramount Theater, which is in the heart of Newark, was shut down way before I was even born. This riot left the city economically depressed for decades. In 2011, I came back from Silicon Valley, flew back home, and landed in Newark. My mom picked me up from the airport. And she took the long way home. And I passed places like the Paramount Theater, passed places where I grew up. And it was really heartbreaking to see my city in such disrepair. I wanted to make a change, inspired by the tech community and inspired by the Black Wall Street. I wanted to apply the lessons that I learned to help build the tech community in the city that I love. I came up with 3 themes. And from these 3 themes, I did 3 different experiments. Now, the first theme was making your weakness your strength. In the 1920s, segregation was alive and well. Something as simple as drinking water from a water fountain that was labeled whites only can land you in serious trouble, sometimes even worse. But instead of that being their weakness and being their downfall, they made it their motivation. So you mean to tell me you don't want me to eat in your donut shop? Cool, I'll build my own. You don't want me to even ride in your cabs? Cool, I'll drive my own. Maybe I'll call an Uber. And you don't even want me to put my money in your banks. That's cool, I'll keep my own damn money. This was so powerful, and this is what made their weakness truly their strength. In Newark, we had a different kind of weakness. We had bad reputation. Newark had bad news. There's good things happening every day in my city, but you will never know about it because even the local newspaper refuses to put good news out. So the only way I thought I could defeat this is to get people to come to the city. So I started a tech meetup. I started Brick City Tech, the first tech meetup in the city of Newark. And I thought, you know what? This is going to get people to change their opinions. This is going to be it. The first meeting, you know, I invited everyone. I told everyone about it. I even, you know, talked to the local news, even though they were hating. And the first day came, and only 5 people showed up. Now, that should be a bad thing, but you know what? I kind of flipped it because I took my camera and I had everybody sit in the front row and I, you know, angled the picture to make the room, you know, I made that room look like this one. You know, and it doesn't matter, you know, it is what it is. You know, I wasn't discouraged. So I went back to the drawing table. I partnered with some local universities. I even changed the location to make sure that the meetups were easier to get to. And during the second one, 35 people came up this time. Now, 35 isn't a lot of people, but to me, I felt like I hit the lottery. And I kept it consistent, no matter how many people showed up. And now, Brick City Tech is close to 1,000 members strong. Now, every person that comes to the city of Newark that is brand new, that comes to my meetup, they're slowly chipping away at that so-called weakness. The second theme that I discovered was collaboration. You see, in Tulsa, in the Greenwood district, since they were forced to create their own services, it was only natural that you would use the services in that neighborhood before you left the neighborhood. But then it became intentional. You see, the black dollar circulated 36 to 1,000 times, sometimes taking an entire year before it left that community. That was really powerful. I don't know how I'm going to duplicate that, but I aimed at it. And my first collaboration interest actually came from City Hall. And I was excited. I was like, okay, you know what? This is what I joined for. I wanted to be a politician at first. Let's go, let's team up, let's make things happen. But then it didn't work. It turns out that I learned the biggest lesson that I ever learned about politics. It was slow. It's mad slow. Super slow. I was way too early, and I didn't have an ask. I didn't know what I really wanted. But most of all, nobody would take me serious unless I had one of these, which is a suit. It turns out the rest of the world was not familiar with the Mark Zuckerberg way of doing business. And I had to adapt. I mean, I got a blazer now, but it's too late. That experiment failed. But I wasn't discouraged. I found out that Newark had a pretty thriving art scene. So I collaborated with a local art gallery and a local business development group. And what we wanted to do was put together a pop-up co-working space. Pop-up is really popular these days. And it was only going to run just for the summer. That was it. So at the top of the summer, not too many people came, but I was expecting that. I already had an experiment before, with the meetup group. But little by little, week by week, more people came to collaborate and work together. And by the end of the summer, we basically validated that Newark not only can collaborate and work together, but it was needed. And so we started a real co-working space. There's a real co-working space called Equal Space in the heart of Newark, downtown. And their second location will open up by the end of this year. We proved that we can make it work. The third theme is the most important theme of them all, and it was education. You see, in the Greenwood neighborhood, they had to build their own schools because the kids would get harassed walking to school through the racist parts of town. So not only did they teach them their regular curriculum, they actually said, oh no, we're going to teach our children to build in our neighborhood, to build these businesses. So I said, that's what I want to do. I want to change my focus. I want to talk about building startups and learning how to code. This became painfully obvious when we had a hackathon in the city of Newark. Everybody was involved. Cory Booker, who was our former mayor, was involved. Audible.com, who's actually based in Newark, was involved. And the goal was to rebuild the city's website. Everybody was happy. Everybody smiling, going lucky, real cheesy. But then it kind of flopped because what I kind of discovered was that we had an excellent winner to the competition, but there wasn't much competition. Too many hackathons, not enough hackers. So I changed the focus of my meetup group to learning about building new skills. It reminds me of a time I was in 5th grade. My teacher, Miss LeBron, held me back after school for detention. I was bad. I heard I had a mouth on me. But when she held me back, she let me get on this thing called a computer. And she taught me how to surf the web, taught me how to play a few games, and she even helped me set up my first email address. That was the first time I was introduced to technology, and it stuck with me ever since. And it's so funny how something so simple could lead to more complex things. They say if you give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, you could feed him for a lifetime. That was true for me, and I wanted to make that true for everybody else in Newark. And I'm so happy and grateful that Code for America and Google Developer Group has joined me on this quest. Now, where are you from? You too can build like the Black Wall Street. All you have to do is follow the 3 themes. Make your weaknesses your strength. Collaborate and create opportunities for others to collaborate. And educate so that you can multiply the success. All of these themes add up to one central goal: to create better communities so that we can create more Mabel Littles. Because stories like hers and like mine don't come from Silicon Valley. They come from everywhere else. Thank you.
Many of our communities have experienced a type of economic erosion where many properties are left desolate, unsafe, or even vacant for extended periods of time, mainly due to practices such as redlining, mortgage discrimination, blockbusting, deindustrialization, and economic disinvestment from the public and private sector. In addition, studies show that vacant properties in a neighborhood are correlated to increased violence and criminal activity. The most common method of economic revitalization that occurs in most of these communities is called gentrification. This is where members of a more affluent community pool public and private resources in order to make investments into poorer areas, forcing some of the most economically vulnerable members to move away. In the end, the community loses its identity, culture, and history, while the problems of poverty, lack of economic resources, or quality education still exist for the displaced. Tulsa Real Estate Fund is an SEC-registered Regulation A+ Tier 2 economic vehicle for urban communities to collectively pool their dollars and gain control over the revitalization of their own neighborhoods. Due to a new SEC regulation, for the first time, members of the community can invest as low as $500 into a real estate crowd fund and become part owners of all types of real estate investments, such as hotels, apartment buildings, schools, hospitals, or even large blocks of single or multifamily homes. Here's how it works. Tulsa Real Estate Fund will collect capital from a pool of socially conscious investors, then search for quality real estate investment opportunities in economically depressed neighborhoods, purchasing properties to be fixed up and either sold or held onto for rental income. As the properties make payments and/or increase in value, the fund participants as co-owners of the portfolio of investments will receive an 8% preferred return and a 50-50 split of the remaining profits with the fund managers. In addition to receiving the return on their capital, the Tulsa Fund real estate investor will have had the opportunity to create jobs in their community, participate in neighborhood improvements, positively impact local public spending, all the while creating a new legacy of ownership and financial investment. We welcome you to explore this innovative 21st century economic solution.
The community of the 15th Ward was based on a representative structure of the city of Syracuse based on neighborhoods. By the 1920s, there were 19 wards in the city of Syracuse and 19 neighborhood board representatives on the Common Council, the school board, and the county board of supervisors. In 1935, a new city charter destroyed this neighborhood board system of representation. After the 1935 charter changes, no African American or Jew was elected into local office in Syracuse for almost 4 decades. In 1963, the civil rights movement was taking birth and the opportunity to heal for the 15th Ward was over, and the entire community was destroyed through urban renewal or removal. What remains of the 15th Ward is within the hearts and memories of the community.